I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer or reflection. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Jared, please take roll.
Here, virtually.
Here in person.
Here. She's going to be a little bit late.
Mr. Klein?
Here.
Ms. Madonna Emerald?
Here.
Mary Chapkus?
Here.
Mr. Palmieri? Here. Alcina? Mr. Rose? Here. Ms. Dagger Shulman?
Here.
Mr. Walton? Here.
Here.
Now we have 13 members left.
Okay, we'll begin with proclamations/certificates. 13883-26.
A proclamation proclaiming April 2026 Child Abuse Prevention Month, sponsored by Councilmembers Dagger Shulman and Mary Chapkus.
Hi. Very excited to present this proclamation really recognizing the importance of Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas our children are our most valuable resources and will shape the future of Allegheny County, and it is the responsibility of all members of our community to ensure every child grows up in a safe, supportive, and nurturing environment, whereas child abuse and neglect remain serious problems affecting children and families across the nation, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and within Allegheny County, requiring awareness, prevention efforts, and coordinated community actions to protect vulnerable children, and whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that can have lifelong consequences for victims, whereas protective factors such as strong family connections, supportive communities, access to education, healthcare, and safe environments help reduce the risk of abuse and neglect while promoting the healthy social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children, and whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the meaningful connections and partnerships created between child welfare, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, and law enforcement agencies. And whereas the Allegheny County Department of Human Services works with community partners to strengthen families and prevent child abuse through education, outreach, and supportive services that help children and families thrive. And whereas the Blue Ribbon Campaign, recognized nationally as the symbol for child abuse prevention, serves as the reminder of the importance of protecting children and raising awareness throughout communities during the month of April. And whereas increasing public awareness and education about child abuse prevention helps foster a community culture that values children, supports families, and ensures every child in Allegheny County has the opportunity to grow up in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, Allegheny County Council members Lissa Geiger-Schulman and Michelle Nacarati-Chapkus, do hereby proclaim April 2026 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Allegheny County, and we urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families. In witness whereof, we have hereto caused the seal of Allegheny County to be affixed this 24th day of March, 2026.
Thank you. Yes. Good evening. My name is Joanne Wachowski-Smith. I'm a former commissioner with the City of Pittsburgh Youth Commission. I've been a child abuse prevention advocate, legal advocate, and child welfare professional for about 30 years. And I'm here, and I thank both council members for sponsoring this. I was here last year and will be here next year again, because our children, our babies and toddlers, our children and youth are precious. And they are the most innocent victims of violence and crime. And it happens in every community, in your communities that you represent. And we must make every effort to collaborate and coordinate efforts for prevention. Life is very hard. The economy is hard. When children are born, if you have children or grandchildren, nieces, nephews, family members, siblings, they don't come with a handbook when they're born. There's no instructions. And life is very hard in our economic situation now. The basic necessities, we know that it is the stressors that can cause or be a factor in child abuse. If you can't afford to buy food or diapers or formula, if you don't have supports, if you don't have quality childcare, housing, early education, all of these factors play a role in abuse and violence. So I appreciate all of your efforts to assure funding for all programs, Department of Human Services, Child Welfare, but also our community partners and programs that help protect our babies and children. Early intervention is absolutely essential. We also have Hello Baby, which is a program and resources, so they get diapers and formula and so many programs to reach out. You're not alone. But we ask you to raise awareness, not just in the month of April, which is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, but every day. Every day in our work is to try to keep children, babies safe. I would like to ask council members or anyone here today, on April 1st, right across the street in Children's Court, Family Court, where our judicial system, our judges and our advocates and systems work every day to protect children that are in foster care in the system. April 1st at noon across the street, I encourage you to come. We're going to kick off the month and have blue pinwheels that will be planted over at the courtyard. They are a symbol of joy and innocence. And that's the hope that we have for every child, every baby, everyone to be safe and healthy. But it starts every day. Every day we have to advocate. So thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, sure.
Camera.
You guys ready? 1, 2, and 3. Gotcha.
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. The remaining proclamations we read into the record. 13884-26.
A proclamation recognizing Sergeant Eric Hess of the East Peaceport Police Department and saving the life of the 7-month-old, sponsored by Councilmember Nagarete.
13885-26.
A proclamation commending Chief Ellis Watson for his distinguished career with the Switzdale Braddock Hills Regional Police Department, sponsored by Councilmembers Nagarete, Chapkus, and Walton.
13886-26.
A proclamation recognizing Gabriel Joseph Zick on achieving the rank of Eagle Scout, sponsored by Councilmember Brewster.
13887-26.
A proclamation recognizing Hendricks Cole Oldham for achieving the rank of Eagle Scout, sponsored by Councilmember Brewster.
13888-26.
A proclamation recognizing Haley Smart for her outstanding athletic achievement as the 2026 PIAA Girls Wrestling State Champion, sponsored by Councilmember Medina.
13889-26.
A proclamation recognizing Mancini's Bakery upon the occasion of their 100th anniversary, sponsored by Councilmember Tina.
13890-26.
A proclamation in memoriam recognizing the service of Canine Bloodhound Ellie Fay, sponsored by Councilmember Tina.
We'll now have public comment on any agenda items.
The number first up is David Brennan.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dave Bringen. Wearing a couple different hats here. I'm the Executive Director of Lawrenceville United, which is a nonprofit community organization that works to improve quality of life for all who live in Lawrenceville. And I also serve as a member of Sharpsburg Borough Council. Wearing both hats tonight, I'm here to encourage County Council to pass the anti-retaliation ordinance before you. As a member of Sharpsburg Borough Council, I was very proud to introduce a very similar piece of legislation in Sharpsburg, which passed our council unanimously and has now been in effect for the past 2 years. Our legislation was modeled off of Meadville, Pennsylvania, which passed an anti-retaliation ordinance when a 128-unit senior community in Meadville attempted to raise rents by as much as 40% in 1 year to tenants living on fixed incomes. When some of the seniors began speaking out, the landlord retaliated by non-renewing the leases of tenants who had provided testimony at their council meetings or talked to the media. Some of these tenants had sold their homes to live out the rest of their lives in the senior community, only to lose their housing and their community for daring to exercise their First Amendment rights. As a member of a borough council myself, the last thing I would want is for a Sharpsburg resident to have to decide between speaking to us about an issue, especially a safety or health issue, and keeping a roof over their heads. So while we did not have a precipitating event like Meadville's in Sharpsburg, we know that retaliation does occur because in the 2 years since our anti-retaliation ordinance has been in place, it has stopped a couple retaliatory evictions. In at least one case that I'm aware of, the tenant won their eviction case in front of the magistrate because the landlord had literally texted the tenant the threat of retaliation. So this does happen, it's a real issue, and our anti-retaliation ordinance provided real protection in this situation. Almost just as importantly, the threat of retaliation looms large and creates some really bad outcomes for everyone. We don't want a mom to be afraid to call the health department if black mold or lead is going unaddressed by her landlord. We don't want a neighbor to fear reporting an instance of discrimination to our Human Rights Commission. We don't want a senior in our high-rise to be afraid of speaking at a council meeting about an elevator not working in the building and trapping them on the 9th floor of the building. Passing this anti-retaliation ordinance countywide will provide at least some extra peace of mind for tenants all across the county to exercise rights they already have, regardless of which municipality they live in. I can also assure you that landlords who are not retaliating against their tenants have nothing to fear from this ordinance, and that's certainly been our experience in Sharpsburg. We haven't received a single complaint about this ordinance during the time we introduced it or since. If a tenant is breaking the law or violating their lease in some way, the landlord can still pursue a lawful eviction. So thank you to Allegheny County for taking up this ordinance and to everyone who co-sponsored, and I urge you to pass this common sense piece of legislation tonight. Thank you.
Next up, Madeline McGrady.
Good evening, Council. My name is Maddie McGrady. I live in Highland Park, and I'm speaking today as a co-chair of the Housing Justice Table. We're a coalition of diverse organizations and independent advocates working together to support policies and programs that bring healthy, affordable, and accessible housing within reach to all Allegheny County residents as a human right. We strongly support the proposed anti-retaliation ordinance that is before Council tonight. I want to say tonight we have chosen, I would say, quality over quantity in terms of turnout for public comment, but I think it's important to share that we could absolutely have packed the room with tenants who have been personally impacted by this issue because it is so pervasive. In our coalition's discussions with renters and organizations that serve renters over the last several years, landlord retaliation and fear of retaliation has consistently come up as a major concern and a barrier for people to secure healthy and stable housing. We've heard from renters whose landlords raised their rent for requesting essential repairs, renters who were evicted for calling the health department, sometimes with the landlord even explicitly stating that that's why they were pursuing an eviction, and renters who continued to pay rent for an apartment that they couldn't even live in because it was so destroyed or like unhealthy, and they were afraid that if they stopped paying rent that the landlord would file and that they wouldn't be able to find a new apartment. These are just some of the run-of-the-mill examples that we've heard from dozens and dozens of people, not to mention some truly egregious examples. I'll say myself, in 2023, I had to stay with friends after a family of raccoons broke into my apartment after months of me requesting for this to be addressed. And the landlord's response was that it was not an emergency and they did not address it for 48 hours. And I ended up having to vacate the apartment. Thankfully, I was able to leave, but many renters are not able to. people should not have to endure unsafe housing conditions when they exercise their rights and seek a redress. So we really need this legislation, and we urge you to pass it without delay. Thank you so much.
Next up, Marilyn McKinney.
Hello, my name is Melinda Kinney, and I am a member of Renters Unite Allegheny, and also one of those tenants that feels scared. I actually had an incident when I was a child that we really were basically kicked out of our apartment because we said something that at the time turned out we had a heater that was not legal and hadn't been legal for a long time, and when it needed fixed, the plumbers said, this is not legal, you have to get it fixed, and our landlord said, hey, we won't fix it. And luckily we had the possibility of moving at the time, but now I live in low-income housing, I am disabled, and there is absolutely no way that I could move. I did get a Section 8, I actually have gotten approved for a Section 8 voucher, and I'm in the process of trying to find a place, but there is so little available that even though I have the approval for a program, I really do not have the options to get anywhere. So I am stuck in a place that is awful to live in, but and I'm scared to report things because they just don't fix things. I've been there 4 years and nothing gets fixed. And I can't report, I don't feel comfortable reporting them to the authorities that is supposed to get things to get them fixed, but they just eat the fines because it's easier for them to eat the fines and to get the and to just not fix things than so having the ability to make sure that we're protected so that we're not getting so that they can make sure that they get things fixed rather than have us stuck with in places that so.
Thank you.
Next up is Brooke Christie.
Before you leave after the meeting, can I see you? You. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brooke Christie, and I am a staff attorney with a nonprofit environmental law firm called Fair Shake. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support tonight of the proposed residential tenant protections from retaliation ordinance. Too often, when someone calls our office due to unsafe housing conditions, they fear retaliation. And too often, the burden of proving retaliation is so great that it dissuades tenants from taking action. For example, one of the most egregious cases I had in Allegheny County was a mother who was dealing with standing water in her basement and holes so large in the exterior wall you could reach your arm through it. Of course, I advised her to make a health department complaint and offered my legal services, but as a lawyer, I had to warn her of risks. Number one, while I can defend you from retaliatory acts, I cannot prevent them. And number two, it is very difficult to prove retaliation. Understanding that, the mother, she had lawfully withheld her rent, and so I had to warn her that the landlord may retaliate by filing for an eviction, which we could get dismissed, but it will be on her record. Due to the fear of retaliation, she declined my legal services and opted to vacate the premise. Too often, this is the cycle, and it emboldens bad landlords to continue their actions while allowing the site to continue to deteriorate and evade detection from the health department. In even worse scenarios, I have families that decline representation and they don't have the option to vacate elsewhere and continue to stay in unsafe housing. We have some of the oldest housing stock in the nation, and this cycle endangers Allegheny County residents. Just today, our office was called because somebody was hospitalized after their rental unit roof fell on them. This ordinance is a big step in holding landlords accountable. It will not entirely remove that fear of retaliation, but it absolutely will shift some of the burden onto the landlord so that we can have a more fair court process. One where the landlord has to explain why their retaliatory actions were not retaliatory. Landlord retaliation in Allegheny County is a very real experience for tenants, and I ask you today to support a more fair housing court process and pass ordinance 13863. Thank you.
Next up is Kathy Brown.
And I believe Councilperson Hallam's on the phone at this point. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Brown. I'm a resident of Belfield Dwellings on Center Avenue. I'm here representing 158 apartments, and a lot of the tenants in our building are afraid to report anything. We've had from bed bugs to rats, mice at one point, and the tenants are very afraid. I'm one of them ones. I'm controversial, so you got to do what you got to do. I'm not worried about being evicted or none, because I know my rights, but everybody don't know their rights, okay? And I joined 1PA about 2 years ago when when MB Affordable took over all these ARCO properties, and a lot of people that I talk to and I deal with on a daily basis, even my friends, are living in places where there's mushrooms growing out of the toilet, there's mold, then they don't have nowhere to go because there's not a whole lot of affordable housing. And it's very important that we pass this ordinance because, like I said, I'm here representing 158 apartments. People are afraid to come forth because they're afraid that they're going to be displaced. Like she said, I'm 66 years old. If I didn't have the ability to move, I'd be in the same position these people are in. And a lot of the people in that building is like 80 some years old, and they can't come here and stand before you and say what I'm saying. So I'm the voice for Belfield Dwellings. Been working hard for this. And like I said, the people are afraid. They're shaking in their boots because where am I going to go? This is what you're thinking, and they're afraid to speak up. We was in the building for months without an elevator, for months, okay, with 158 apartments. Year before last, it was the elevator didn't go nowhere but higher to the 9th floor, okay? So it's real important that that council pass this, very important. And with that, I thank you very much for hearing me.
Hi, my name is Patrice Aaron. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. Okay, my name is Patrice Aaron. I've rented with ARCA in the Hill District for 5 years now. I've been living there since 2021. I've just been through so much trauma with my ceiling falling through 4 different times. Last year in 2025, we didn't have power for 35 days. Our main breaker box went out. We told the rent office, and we told the health department, we told a couple organizations, but we didn't really get any results. At the time, I had a newborn, and I had a 7-year-old son, and it was very scary because I never went through something like this before. I'm here to mainly advocate for a lot of the tenants that won't step up. I'm one of the younger tenants, and I'm working closely with 1PA. They knocked on my door last year. And ever since they knocked on my door, we've just been involved doing protests, just trying to get people to march in the community, to get more people. If there's more people and more numbers, they'll actually come together and actually hear us out. But a lot of people has been affected by this mentally, including myself and my family. We don't have other options to just move. We're doing the best that we can, but our maintenance isn't being done. It's just things that are going on, and we just don't know what's going on. It's just different. Originally, it was ARCA, but now they have switched to like 4 different companies, and they just keep switching different property manager. I've been living there since 2001, so there's been 3 property managers already since I lived through there, and you can't imagine what I've been through. And even when before I didn't have any light, I didn't have heat for 2 years. And at that time, I had my daughter. And I don't know how I was making it, but we had to do what's due. But it's scary. And thank you for listening to me. You guys have a good one.
Mr. President. Miss Aaron and Miss Aaron and Miss Brown, at the conclusion of this meeting, can you come see me? Can we talk up here, please? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Next up is Sarita Milligan.
Mr. President, just a point of clarification. I just wanted to let people know that after the first beep, you still have another minute to speak. So it's only after the red light. So just don't want to stop anybody short.
Hi, yes, my name is Sarita Milligan. I'm a tenant at Montview Heights. I've been living there for 3 years now. And throughout them 3 years, when I moved in, my gas stove wasn't hooked up. My furnace was broke. I moved in the middle of the winter. It was very cold. Since I moved in, I noticed that my kitchen was leaking into my kitchen was having a leak. My bathroom was leaking into my kitchen. And it caused the kitchen ceiling to fall in at least 3 to 4 times now. I deal with rodent problems. I contact them about these things. There's nothing they can do. There's vacants around me that they can't send pest control into because the management won't open the doors. I'm finding dead mice. They're eating through my food. I've had multiple break-ins with no help with fixing locks. Wow, I get a lot of harassment from their security who sits in a parking lot and won't move his car. I am also as well disabled. I am supposed to have my cane. I don't have it today. My health issues have went from, since I moved in, from okay to failing. I'm constantly at the hospital due to health issues. I've fallen down these people's steps, busted my head, broken a finger, went to the hospital, had to get stitches. I let them know that. They tried to rush in and do a rush job and tried to fix what was never fixed in the beginning when I explained that it needed to be fixed. Still having problems today with finding dead mice in my dog's food, around my food. They're eating through my food. I don't know. I reach out. I've spoken to multiple people. I continue to reach out to their rental office and, different avenues that I can. I've reached out to the health department. They've been there multiple times. No telling how many times they've been there. I always follow up with them. At this point, I don't know what else to do.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Next up is Sarah White.
Is she here? What's her name? Say it again. Kiara White.
Hi, I'm Kiara White, Fairweather, but White. That's why I sat there. I was a little alarmed to hear my maiden name. But I am not physically in the MB Affordable or ARCA housing. My mom lives there. My mom takes care of my son. My son was premature, so he was born with pneumothorax. So his immune system is a little suppressed, and he has breathing problems. She has mold in her pantry, and her pantry is right underneath her bathroom, and her toilet has mushrooms growing in it because of the mold. And we've called the health department, we've called ARCA, MB Affordable. We don't really know who they are sometimes because they just switch so many times. But I am here for the tenants because they're scared. And I have MV Affordable Housing that lives around my unit, and I live in Bedford Hills, but I can see the transition to where my housing is falling in the same situations as the ARCA MV Affordable Housing are falling into. They have rodent problems. They're using our garbage cans now because they're not paying for their garbage to be picked up for their tenants. So it's not only affecting them directly, it's affecting the community, the neighbors that surrounding them, our children's environments. Like, my mom has congestive heart failure because she's now living in this. Like, we just really need help, and we're just out here begging and crying for this help because we need this law to be passed because we're scared. Retaliation's in every rental house, rental housing, rental unit, even private landlords as well as private landlords in HUD. Like, we don't know what to do, and we're just looking for you all to help us. Thank you.
Next up is Matthew Rubin.
Hi, my name is Matthew Rubin. I'm a resident of Beachview. I'm an organizer with One Pennsylvania. We work to bring people together to have a say in their communities, to be able to advocate for the communities that they want. One of our biggest campaigns, as you've been hearing from folks, has been working with folks at the MB Affordable properties, the former ARCO properties brought by a private equity firm called MB Affordable. That is a documented criminal firm where the CEO and vice president went to or pled guilty to over $120 million of mortgage fraud in federal court, and then functionally disappeared. Landlord so absent that their website didn't get paid for, let alone their property managers or repairs. And in the wake of that, while there are foreclosure cases going on, while there are legal processes for change of ownership, while there's one property that's been bought by the property manager, tenants continue to not get repairs that they need. They continue to have a property manager that receives federal funds, our tax dollars, to fix things. It has a profit motive to fix less things and tells tenants they don't have money to fix things while they buy new properties with money that they have. And then do not then fulfill their responsibilities to care for those properties that they then own. We regularly hold renters' rights clinics to educate folks about their rights. We go out, we knock doors, tenants knock doors, we talk to their neighbors. A common thing that we hear is that a lot of folks are afraid to come to a meeting to learn about their rights, afraid to report things to the health department, afraid to speak out because they could be evicted, because they could just not have their lease renewed. And it is true that people do have rights to prevent that right now, but we can strengthen those rights. We can make that a lot clearer. We can make that process a lot easier to enforce. And this legislation will be a great step towards it. As you can guess, we would say that this legislation doesn't fix all of the problems for housing or for MB affordable tenants, but it is incredibly hard to make the system we have now work if people are afraid to report the issues that they're experiencing. And that then can be a step towards also people being able to participate in a process to advocate for the changes that they want to see, or to pressure their landlord themselves to make the changes that they need. We need much more than this, but even if you think this system itself is good enough, we should all agree that if the system requires tenants to report violations, they need to be able to do that without fear of retaliation. And this would be a great step to make that happen. Thank you.
Alan Hollinger.
Good evening. My name is Alan Hollinger, and I'm a commercial painter apprentice with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. As someone who has worked for contractors that provide proper safety equipment, look out for their workers, and employ apprentices like myself to build future generations of Western Pennsylvania tradespeople, I'm excited to see Allegheny County define what it means to be responsible. I would not work for a contractor that has repeatedly broken laws or stolen money from its workers. And as a county taxpayer, I certainly wouldn't want a shady construction firm to receive public money. This responsible contractor ordinance will add needed transparency to the county bidding process and raise the standards to protect and grow the current future generations of local workers, businesses, and Allegheny taxpayers. I appreciate the County Council's attention to this issue, and I hope to see this legislation passed tonight. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we'll now have approval of minutes 13891-26.
Motion to approve the minutes of February 24th, 2026, regular meeting of council.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll get you in at the end. Is that okay? Okay. Unless, is it on an agenda item?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come up then.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Don't know what happened. Well, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Bob Damewood. I'm a resident of Mount Washington and a staff attorney in the Pittsburgh Office of Regional Housing Legal Services. And I'm here to speak in support of the proposed Allegheny County residential anti-retaliation ordinance. Some of the testimony tonight, some of the comments, I mean, you know, we just got to count our blessings. Anyway, RHLS, the law firm that I work for, is a statewide legal aid program that provides legal help and technical assistance for community-based nonprofits that work to create or preserve affordable housing. We also have a policy shop that provides legal research and advocacy with respect to state and municipal housing policies that benefit low-income Pennsylvanians. As you've heard from one of the previous speakers, Allegheny County's approach to protecting the health and safety of the occupants of rental housing is complaint-driven. The effectiveness of that system depends almost entirely on the willingness of occupants to bring health and safety problems to the attention of the health department. But few tenants risk filing a complaint or exercising any of the other legal rights to safe and healthy housing because they know that if they do, they will most likely lose the roof over their children's heads, over their families' heads. Under Pennsylvania law, many tenants can lose their homes in any given month, even if they are completely in compliance with their legal obligations and their lease obligations. During the term of the lease, tenants can only be evicted for of a legally valid reason, for non-payment of rent or a violation of the lease. But at the end of the lease term, a landlord can refuse to renew the lease for any reason or no reason at all. And lease terms are often month to month in Pennsylvania. A tenant's ability to remain housed, therefore, depends largely on their ability to remain in the good graces of their landlord. The proposed anti-retaliation ordinance gives tenants some protection. Under the bill, a landlord who files a legal proceeding against a tenant after the tenant's exercise of the legal right to safe and healthy housing would be required to show that they have a legally valid, non-arbitrary reason for taking the adverse action that led to the legal proceeding. That would make it more difficult for landlords to avoid their legal obligations by retaliating against tenants who assert their rights. When tenants are afraid to report dangerous conditions or unhealthy living conditions, not only does it put that family in jeopardy, but the next family as well, until the property becomes so unlivable that it is abandoned, leaving local governments holding the bag. So this is a legally valid, legally solid, common sense piece of legislation, and I urge council to adopt it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor.
We'll now move to unfinished business, Committee on Government Reform for the second reading, 13808-26.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, directing a referendum question regarding the amendment of Article 3, Section 5B of the Home Rule Charter of Allegheny County, which places term limits on only the chief executive, be placed on the May 19, 2026 primary election ballot, and amending the Charter and Administrative Code of Allegheny County contingent upon passage of such referendum, sponsored by Councilmembers Katina, Hallam, Grisbeck, Rose, and Madonna Emerald.
Thank you. At this point, I believe we have an amendment at this point, so Council Members Grisbeck, Filiaggi, would you like to explain your amendment?
Do we need a motion and a second first?
Yeah, you need a motion, put it on the floor in a second, and then we can.
So moved. Second.
Now we can proceed.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to introduce Grisbeck Filiaggi 1.
Second. Second.
And while those are being passed around, just a quick summation of what this amendment would do. It would create term limits of 3 terms, so a total of 12 years on all positions in Allegheny County government. So that is Allegheny County Council, that is obviously the county executive still has their term limit, but it would close the same loophole that the original bill itself closes, and then it would also apply to all of the row offices, with the caveat that it differs from the term limits bill that I introduced last year, in that it grandfathers in currently sitting members of all Allegheny County government and starts that first term of the 3 terms as of the beginning of January 2027. So folks like myself or Councilwoman Madonna Emmerling, we would still only have 3 total terms, but someone like Councilman Futulis, who has served a number of terms already, he would get 3 total terms starting with the present term as of the beginning of 2027. And I'm happy to answer any questions on the bill, or on the amendment rather.
Questions?
Or arguments?
Whatever.
Not necessarily a question. I would say that this is a very significant change in government, and we're about to consider it without a committee meeting, without a public hearing, without consulting row officers. This is historic to do that, and I believe that the committee process should have its due process to discuss this and talk to other people that involved before we consider this, because, in my opinion, it's not consistent with government. The federal level, we have a president that has a term limit. U.S. senators do not. Congressmen, congresspeople do not. The governor of Pennsylvania has a term limit. The state reps and the senators do not. In Allegheny County, the chief executive has a term limit and council members do not. It's consistent with government. This is historic that this council wants to change the way Allegheny County operates from the actual beginning of Allegheny County, without a committee meeting, without discussion, without hearing from the row offices. I find it irresponsible, and I believe that this board members should be more interested in new development, new jobs, things like keeping your taxes down. That's what we focus on, not term limits. Most of us would leave in 12 years. A couple of us lifers like John and myself, I've been here quite some time, and when I'm ready to leave, I'm sure I will, or the people will vote me out. That's a term limit. When the people of this county decide they don't want you anymore, that's a term limit. And we've seen some close elections here because of it. So I'm just not in favor, because I think that this is rushing things to a bit. I would be more than happy to listen to it in a committee and have public hearings, which are pretty much what we do. But for us to waive the second read, no, to amend by substitution, just like that, I think it's irresponsible. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councilmember Filiaggi.
Thank you very much. And with all due respect to all of my colleagues up here, especially to you, Nick, because I sit next to you, and I don't want you to beat me up, but not that you would. I am very respectful. This is a bill that we actually have, and the genesis and the spirit of the bill we've discussed last year, and we did discuss it for a very long time. I understand how you feel. I think
lately we've been doing a lot of historic things. Some of it I didn't agree with, but they've been called historic nonetheless. And I will say at this time, I think this is a moment in time for this council to act. I'm not jumping for joy that we are doing something that the voters, we're making some decisions for the voters. But I think in light of what does go on, in light of the data that suggests that incumbents just have such a great edge over any new person trying to get in light of Citizens United, it is just becoming too hard for this to be just all on the voters. And I firmly believe that the 3 terms, 12 years, that period of time represents the sweet spot between the institutional knowledge that many of you all have here and in some of the other row offices. It's the sweet spot between the institutional knowledge and then the motivation, innovation, and energy that younger, newer people can provide any of these offices. So I'm asking you to consider voting yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll get to you, Council. Okay, go ahead.
This is historic. I think what we are about to decide has the potential to take us back in history 60, 70 years. I think this decision that we're about to make is one of the great things about a democracy, and one of the worst things about a democracy is that we are going to take away the ability of voters to make a decision who represents them. We're going to make a decision that we are going to limit their voice. I remember a time in this country where black people could not get elected because everybody that was voted at large. And as a result, lawsuits and efforts and fights were waged. And then people began to be elected by districts. And as a result, black people began to have voice, be able to be part of the decision-making process. What we are about to do today is to take away folks being elected by districts, people, and we're about to make a decision that districts don't matter anymore, that black folk don't have a voice anymore, that the minorities really don't matter. We're engaging in crap that is inherently racist in its application. I really respect you, Suzanne Filiaggi. You and I have had many conversations, but I really don't think you thought your way through what you're doing. Grisbeck, I believe he understands what he's doing. I'm telling you, look here, when we went to a county council in 1999 and had 13 districts, those districts were drawn so black folk weren't excluded. What we're about to do makes it much more difficult for black folk to be included in the process. From 1999 all the way through 2022, or maybe 20, yeah. There were 2 African Americans on council. Now there's 1. Play the game how you want to play it. But again, know what you're doing. This is a scam to disenfranchise folks that I represent, people that look like me, have dreams and aspirations like me. I'm done.
I'll let Councilmember Mack go.
Is there an ability to refer this back to committee so that we can have a discussion, given the length of the amendment, so that folks have an opportunity to ask questions
So
rather than discussion happening here on the
I would say
dais?
the bill itself would then have to get referred back to committee. But I would also say that this is the 3rd time in the last 4 or 5 years the council has discussed term limits. As Councilwoman Filiaggi alluded to earlier, Councilman Walton, I gave you the time to speak. I would prefer that you would give me the same level of respect. As Councilwoman Filiaggi alluded to, our discussion on this topic for almost the identical bill last year was rather in-depth in nature. Council members provided a lot of their input. I would say that it is insulting to the residents of Allegheny County and their intelligence to imply that creating term limits would somehow be disenfranchising Black people. First off, we would maintain all of our council districts. So if someone would be term limited, there would still be all of the council districts. So the statement that we would be removing that ability is just fundamentally false on its face. I would also add that the residents of Allegheny County would be the ones that are ultimately voting on whether or not we have term limits. Passing this bill does not immediately implement term limits. Rather, it just places a referendum question on the ballot that ultimately gives Allegheny County voters the chance to choose whether or not term limits are something that they want as a part of their government. I will say that the stance that elections are the naturally built-in term limits. I understand the sentiment behind it, right? But I poured over the data for the last decade that we have publicly available through Allegheny County, and what you see is that 89% of elections in which an incumbent was challenged, the incumbent won. That is a very clearly built-in advantage that makes it incredibly difficult for turnover, incredibly difficult for new ideas to form, and that's not overly surprising given that the advantage that incumbents have due to name recognition, due to developing relationships within their districts, due to developing relationships with special interest groups, which often contribute a large amount of campaign funds to their re-election campaigns. These are all virtually insurmountable paths for new people to jump over. And that 89% also doesn't account for all of the folks who elect to not challenge incumbents because they understand the uphill battle that they are facing. So what I will say is that this ultimately will be the decision of the voters if we choose to pass it. They will be the ones who vote and decide whether or not term limits become part of our Allegheny County government. Thank you.
Councilmember Madonna Emerline. I'll get back to you.
Thank you. Councilmember Grisbeck covered most of what I wanted to say, but respectfully, incumbency is an inherent bias. And I didn't realize this before I was an endorsable candidate running for Allegheny County Council. But it is virtually impossible to get endorsed running against an incumbent. Everyone will tell you, don't bother to run, you'll never get it, or they will tell a candidate the road to overcome the lack of money you'll get. Most people don't have the skill set in and of themselves to be able to overcome the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, because many organizations have either a written or unwritten policy that they will not endorse someone if an incumbent is running because it's bad business for them. So my feeling is if there are 14 white people up here who have an incumbency advantage, limiting our terms allows fresh people to run in a more level playing field. And I think 12 years is a lot of time to get your work done. And what we should all be doing is helping the next generation of people coming behind us to bring their new and interesting life experiences to this body during the time that we're running.
Councilman Klein?
Thank you, Mr. President. To reiterate in some way what Mr. Grisbeck offered, so this is not a council decree, and in fact, in many respects, this is the purest form of democracy and the right of the voters to have their voices heard, because all we're doing is, with this particular bill, we are attempting to create an opportunity to put this on the ballot in May, and then the voters ultimately get to decide as to whether or not there ought to be term limits. I mean, the reality is that across this country, this is not something that is new. I mean, there are 36 states that have term limits for governors, as well as other elected officials at the state level. There are municipalities around the country that have done the same thing. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the country is falling apart, but not everywhere, and there might be other reasons for that. But my thinking is that all we're trying to do here is we're trying to ultimately give the voters an opportunity to decide whether or not this is something that is consistent with a change that they would like to see in terms of how we govern. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman, go ahead.
Look, voters currently have the ability to make those decisions. They currently exercise that ability. I hear an argument guised under the need to limit incumbency. I continue to say that this is racist, has racist implications, and if you lynch me and say you lynched me because I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, and that justified it, I'm still lynched. To deny voters the opportunity to make those decisions and to put our thumb on the scale to limit the abilities of a person to run is inherently wrong. I had this conversation with Member Klein earlier, and he shared some of the data that he used about their instances of term limits. You know, again, I asked the question then, I ask the question now. Does it make it right? Does it make it best that we take away the ability of individualized voters to determine who is going to represent them, as opposed to saying that we can't continue to serve the best interest of the people that we represent, irrespective. Those voters have that responsibility. Those voters have that right. And we do a disservice to the people that we purport to represent.
President Katina, I'd like to call for the vote.
Hold on one sec. Councilman Walton, would you yield for a question just so? Would you yield, Councilman Walton?
Yield to a question?
For question, yeah.
By all means.
Okay. Can you help me understand why you feel term limits are somehow related to, I mean, that causes racism? I'm just trying to understand. I mean, just.
I grew up in Gary, Indiana.
Okay.
For my entire life until I left, in 1967, voters were members of council. Well, let me take that back. Until 1965, voters were elected at large. Representatives were elected at large. Because of litigation, districts were formed. And if you go back and you follow the history of this country, districts were formed to begin to address the challenge of racism. Because again, me as a black person, it would be extremely difficult for me to be elected countywide. But in my district, I can run and I can win. And I can share my voice and have my impact. But again, for me to run in 1.3 million voters when I only make up 13% of that 1.3 million voters, it's extremely tough. And if anybody tell me that racism ain't alive and well in Allegheny County and in America, you're a damn liar. And you expect me to be a fool. Racism plays a part, and what we're about to do feeds into that inherent racism.
So you're saying term limits, basically, when we impose a term limit, that equates to basically trying to control the seat or what have you?
Well, look at it.
Okay.
From 1999 until the early 2000s, there were 2 African Americans on council. What happened? Is it because they decided that we didn't need 2 black folk? The numbers changed. But again, man, look, there's some shenanigans going on here. There's some shenanigans going on here. There's some shenanigans going on. Hey, I'm not ducking, I'm not running, I'm calling it out. It is racist in its application, it is racist in its implication.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'd like to answer some of the questions that were, or should I say things were mentioned. Dan, you talked about last year we discussed this, correct? There were 4 members of this council that weren't here last year. They don't have a clue what we're talking about. 4. That's almost 1/4 of this council. So just want to remind you that we've got 4 members of this council that, maybe 5. Were you here last year? Yeah, you were. Yeah, in a part of it, but I don't even know if he heard it all. So it could be as many as 5. As far as incumbents always winning, that's not true. Higher percentage. I could tell you right now, Sue Means lost, John DeFazio, Ed Kress, people on this council that were the incumbents. John DeFazio was here for 20 years, and he lost. Okay? They term limited him. So that's false to say the incumbents always win, because they don't. And specifically, Mr. Rose won against an incumbent. That's another one I missed, sorry. Congratulations on your win.
Thanks.
And democracy itself is in jeopardy because it was formed in ancient Greece, 532 BC. And I don't believe they were intended for term limits at that time if we're part-time council members here. We're not even full-time. We're part-time. So we're not entitled to pensions, but we all pretty much know it's really expensive to get on a council as far as getting here. And it's a lot of effort, and it's a lot of you care. And after 12 years, I'll be honest with you, I'm still learning. I never stop learning. I've been here 18 years. And the day I stop learning is the day I'm going to die. Because I'll tell you right now, you never stop learning, no matter what you are, where you are, who you are. And I think that's a good thing. And when the people of this district didn't want me anymore, they'd have voted me out, just like the rest of us. And they have done that. So maybe if this were just us and not the row offices, I could swallow it a little bit better because we're imposing this on ourselves, not somebody else that doesn't have a voice right now. Any conversation or any discussion or meeting, we have none with them, and we're going to change the course of history on row offices? That's pretty outstanding.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I have hopefully, one final comment. I'll propose to send this back to committee, because I think that if we're going to do this, if we're really going to do this and have term limits, I think we ought to also term limit the employment of the staff of county council as well, that they can't work for county council for longer than 12 years. Because the only people that, when you put term limits in, the only people that get stronger are the staff, because the institutional knowledge goes with those folks that leave, and that institutional knowledge remains with the will remain with the staff, and they are not, and the staff is not held accountable to the voters.
Mr. President.
Councilmember, I was looking at Dan.
No, I'll let Councilmember Rose go. After Councilmember Rose speaks, I'd like to call the question.
Thank you. I think, I can't speak for the other new members, but to address Councilman Flatulis's point, I do think it's important that just because some of us were not on this council previously, it doesn't mean that we were not uninformed of the issues. I voted in my first meeting on a $3 billion budget after having been in office for 72 hours, and that's because I wasn't just starting my job in those 72 hours. So, I mean, as I said, I can't speak for everyone, but I think we have been informed and following the issues and are not just winging this here tonight.
Can we get a vote, President Cadena?
Mr. President, if I could.
Go ahead.
Just quickly, just based on all of the comments that were being processed, and as I was processing from everyone that is there today, I agree with Councilman Futolis in being that this is the structure of government is similar to the structure of government nationally. I'm inclined to agree with that most definitely. I disagree with the statement of, because incumbents are, this is going to be a positive thing for incumbents that continually win, because if that's the case, if this is going to go to the ballot to be voted on the ballot, if you are an incumbent and you win most of the time, if not all of the time, whatever that may be, then you do have some influence over the voters that are going to be voting in your district, and you will have the availability to tell them whether to vote yes or no on this. So I believe that is another aspect to think about as we're talking about this. And just a question for, if anybody can answer this, this may be a Jared question, maybe a Frederick question, but if amendments for this do pass, and I'm not stating any further amendments, but just this amendment now that had changed the original bill itself, will there be separate questions on the ballot or the amended question that went forward?
The amended question.
Did you hear that, Councilman? The amended question.
I did. Yes, thank you. So, I mean, ultimately then I think that structure may not be the best solution for the voters as well, because some may agree that the county executive may need to have the term limits, and some may agree that council do not, and ultimately those options should be presented to the voters overall in different forms instead of just what the council has decided today overall. So ultimately, I think the only way to do that is to send it back to committee as well, and I would be in favor of that too, in being that this is something that a lot of us have not spoken of. Whether or not we had research on it and could determine on it, we've only been in this position for a few months, and I disagree with Councilman Rose as well in stating that he voted on a budget after 72 hours. He should have abstained in that case if that was the case. But anyway, where my mind is at is I also believe that it should potentially go back to committee in order to try and have some of that out, especially if we do not vote to send it to the primary again today and goes into the general. If I am getting ahead of myself, I'm sorry, but those are my statements. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. President, parliamentary inquiry. Who writes the structure of the ballot question when it is submitted? I guess this would be a question for you guys. Okay.
We write the ordinance form. The Board of Elections has final authority over what the question says and what the plain language summary says.
Okay, so the plain language on the ballot is going to be written by the Board of Elections.
They have final authority over it. They may choose to adopt exactly what's here, they may not.
Okay, thank you.
And you know what I don't like about it? I know what the question is, and I don't understand it when I read it, because the way it's written, it seems to be unclear to the natural voter that would see in a poll that said, I don't even know what I voted for half the time. Maybe some clear language would be good.
Mr. President, procedural question. Following the vote on the amendment, do we move immediately to passage of the ordinance?
Yes.
Is that our only option
Yes, unless it's referred back to committee.
by a vote?
Yep.
Thank you.
President Katina, I would entertain sending the bill back to committee after voting on the amendment if that is what the majority of council prefers.
I think we need some votes here.
So let's vote on the amendment at this point. The question's already been called, so I mean, Jared, take a roll call vote on the amendment.
On the motion to adopt Amendment Grisbeck Filiaggi 1, Mr. Adams,
I'm going to abstain at this time.
Mr. Vada,
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi,
Yes.
Mr. Tulis,
No.
Mr. Grisbeck,
Yes.
Ms. Hallam,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Madonna Emerling,
Yes.
Ms. Nagarati Chapman,
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri,
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina, Mr. Rose,
Yes.
Ms. Geiger-Schulman,
Yes.
Mr. Walton,
No.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 11, noes 2, 1 abstention. Amendment Grisbeck Filiaggi 1 is adopted.
At this point in time, then, I'm going to refer it back to committee then, for Michelle to have a committee meeting next week.
Next
Mr.
week,
President,
fine.
excuse me a sec, I'm sorry. We've had hearings on so many issues over the years, which I thought were trivial and really didn't deserve a hearing, a public hearing. I think this deserves a hearing, a public hearing. And I agree, it's important. There's a lot of good issues, there's been a lot of good things said here. And you know, I don't open my mouth very often, but this is the time, okay? I would like very much for us to have public hearing on this issue, aside from going back to committee.
Multiple public hearings, not one, multiple public hearings.
So point of personal privilege. Go ahead. I think we're at the point where certain members of council may have the desire to drag their feet and delay this process. I very much respect our vice president's desire to have a public hearing. My curiosity would be what specifically you would hope to gain out of a public hearing, given that this would be an item that voters would ultimately get to vote on. So we would be able to get the best poll of public opinion purely through having it on the ballot and them getting to vote for it.
You know what I would hear in my district? I didn't have a voice in this, Mr. Palmieri. Why didn't you call for a public hearing so that we could come and voice our opinions too? That's what I would hear over and over again. And that's a valid point. And I think that one of the reasons why I'm still here all these years is because I do that. I refer back to my public and to my constituents what they think is right, what they feel is necessary to do. And I'm telling you, that's what I would hear over and over again. Why hasn't this gone to public hearing? So that's my whole point.
Thank you.
And for me, I understand that there are people that disagree with my perspective, but you'll be hard pressed to find folk in my district that disagree with me standing up and speaking up and fighting to make sure their voices are heard and they have an opportunity to share their perspective. If we're going to practice democracy, we have an obligation to have people have their opportunity, have their voices heard.
I have a point of clarification. Are we able to set a time limit for the cadence of these and like we want this all to be wrapped up so it can be on the agenda next month?
Well, if there's a committee meeting next week, provided there's nothing.
I'm saying I don't want to have hearings all summer.
I think that needs to be just fleshed out in the committee process next week, if that's the intent of the committee.
I just spoke with Jared, and would like to have, I'd like to have it next Tuesday, the 31st at 4:30.
Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I have a little point of clarification here. Correct me if I'm wrong, I need help here. Your bill was on the floor. It came out of committee to be voted on. It got amended. So isn't it gone already? And you want to send it back to committee when it's already gone? How can you?
There's not been a final vote on the ordinance as amended.
Yeah.
There's not?
It was just an amendment.
Just the amendment.
The amendment being voted on, it wasn't the
Yeah,
ordinance.
we didn't vote on the ordinance.
Okay, that's what I thought happened, because once it is voted on,
Yeah,
see
then
it
it's
later,
gone.
it's already
Yeah.
gone.
Yep.
That's what I thought happened, I missed that, okay. So
Okay.
it's okay to send it back to committee for further discussion and hold public hearings.
Next Tuesday.
Is there a deadline that this has to be done by before it hits the ballot?
Nope.
Well, there is.
August.
There is.
There has to be,
Mid-August.
and that would be what?
It's
August.
weeks before the election day, so it would fall early mid-August.
Okay, so there's time, it's not a time of the essence here to have this committee meeting.
I mean, we've been talking about this for some time. I mean,
I got it.
honestly.
Oh, I just want to make sure that we're.
No, I get what
On
you're
the right
saying,
page,
but we
that's all.
have been discussing this for a long time. It's just a matter of trying to get it across the finish line, whatever it may be.
And would it be okay if we invited the row officers in for this committee meeting? Well, I mean, we're involving them, so don't you think it'd be a good idea to
It's
bring them in?
referred back to the committee at this point.
Let them
I
handle
would
it.
work with the committee. Councilmember Nacarati is the chair of government reform. She can do as she seems fit. I mean, she can work with staff to bring whoever the committee desires.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on that? Okay, now that we won't get that time back in our lives, we're going to move on to 13811-26.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending and supplementing the administrative code of Allegheny County through the amendment of Article 902, entitled Formal Procurement Process, to create a new Article 9A, entitled Formal Procurement Large Contract, in order to clarify standards governing selection of bidders for certain county contracts on the formal procurement process, sponsored by Councilman Hallam, Grisbeck, Rose, Bada, Madonna Emerling, Geiger Shulman, Paul Messina, Palmieri, and Katina.
Thank you. Councilmember Nacarati Chapkus?
President Katina, the Committee on Government Reform met on March the 19th, 2026, and has affirmatively recommended this as an amendment, as amended rather. And I would also like to say that formally, I clearly hadn't put myself on as a co-sponsor, so I'd like to do that as well. Jared, please. So I'd make that motion, please.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jared, please take a roll call vote.
On the motion to approve, Mr. Adams.
Yes.
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 Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Madonna Emerling.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Messina. Mr. Rose.
Yes.
Ms. Geiger Shulman.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
No.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 13, noes 1, so passed.
13813-26.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, repealing the existing provisions of Article 1013 of the Administrative Code of Allegheny County entitled Political Activity, Accountability, Conduct, and Ethics Code, replacing it with an updated Article 1013 governing the same subject matter and entitled Ethics Code, sponsored by Council Members Katina and Filiaggi.
Thank you. Councilmember Nacarati Chapkus?
President Katina, the Committee on Government Reform met on March the 19th, 2026, and affirmatively recommended this, and I would like to make that motion, please.
Second.
Thank you. Councilman Rose, I believe you have an amendment you'd like to offer?
Yes, I would like to motion to adopt Rose 1. And then as that's being passed out, we can talk about that here.
I'll second that.
Second, okay.
Yes, we did do that. Thank you. So I really admire that this bill has been drafted and drawn up because I think it's really important. Our Ethics Commission, some of our other watchdog commissions have been de facto defunct for a while now, and they're not operating, which is bad for our entire community as well, they are not being a watchdog. So when this ordinance was drafted up here to comprehensive reform and strengthen the Ethics Commission, I was delighted to see that. The only thing I wanted to add to it and what Rose 1 does here is it gives it, this commission, well, basically revamped commission, the power of initiative. So currently, someone has to bring a complaint to the Ethics Commission for them to be able to do anything. And that often doesn't happen due to the fact that these are not well publicized. These commissions' existence isn't well publicized. There's often some complex rules with bringing complaints to them, and a layperson might not understand how to navigate that process. So it means the commission often can't respond to an issue that has been publicly identified and sometimes it's talked extensively about in the news. So what Rose 1 does is it gives the commission itself the authority to go out there and start the process themselves so that they can better respond and that hopefully we don't have this fall into a defunct status again.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. And at the risk of, again, extolling time that we can never get back, I am clearly, President Katina, you and I are the sponsors of this original bill. And while I am not objecting to allowing the commission to investigate themselves, I'm just uncomfortable because I do need some more information. This is you can see how many pages all of the bill is. And I know that the original bill was drafted over a long period of time, okay? And the thought of giving what currently exists as the Ethics Commission the authority to do their own investigating gives me chills because I don't think they're in a position to be able to do that at the moment. So I just wanted to see if there's any way we could continue to vet how a scenario in which this would play itself out in a clean, clear, concise, uninfluenced manner as well. Because what does leap out at me is the potential for an alliance and the commissioner would be influenced by outside sources to file an investigation on their own, and they don't have any context to what the problem might be. And that is a fear that I have. Whereas what exists now without them being able to initiate their own investigations exists within the context of the people who do have context. So I'm sorry I'm making this more complicated, but is there any way we could talk about it further back in committee?
So, Mr. President, if I may, so that's a good point. The current structure of the commission, I think, this is all very true. However, it should be noted that this amendment would only be adopted with the broader context of the overall comprehensive reform. So there are new safeguards into the system that this reform adds in the original bill. And I would also point out that one of the parts of that is that for the commission to initiate something on its own accord, a large majority of the commissioners all need an agreement. So no one member has the authority to go rogue. I think it's 4 or 5 commissioners, if I'm remembering correctly.
4.
4, there you are. So it would have to be almost a comprehensive unanimous agreement of the body to do this on their own accord. So it's not something that's going to be done willy-nilly. It's going to have to be thought out and almost unanimous. So.
And in no way am I questioning your thoughtfulness on this. I have been working on some other bills and just haven't been able to give this amendment the time that I would be comfortable with. But I do understand. Thank you.
Any other questions?
President Katina?
Yeah, I got questions. What actual authority does the Ethics Commission have? Is it advisory, or can they impose punishment? they're not advisory, so they do have power of some sort. Okay. I'm just questioning the fact that if you're a member of the committee, ethics committee, if you particularly, maybe you don't like somebody and you go after them for a specific reason, don't have to be a good one. That might be a conflict. Because as of now, someone has to turn you in for something you've done wrong. And they're like the police department that would put you on trial. So now they're the police and the judge at the same time. They're making the arrest, and then they're going to pass judgment on you based on what they think they found, instead of being like the common plea court, don't outlook for customers, the police do, and bring them to them. So that's exactly, they're doing both jobs right now by doing that. Am I correct? Does it sound like to me?
Kind of, sort of, not. So the way it's structured in this amendment, right, is that, so you have your almost unanimous board decides to initiate something on their own. And then one member of the commission becomes the complainant. So then they are, in your analogy, acting as the police, and then they are stepped out of the rest of the process. So they can't also then be the judge of the own proceedings as well. So you have that complainant, they take that role, and then the rest of the commission would act as it does for every other complaint. But the person who is acting as the police in the analogy would not further be involved as the judge.
May I ask what your motivation is to have Ethics Commission with the authority to actually go after people? I don't understand.
I want it to function, and I don't think it's currently functioning. I think this is a big reason why.
It does function. It functions under complaints, legitimate complaints that somebody's violated some ethics law. That they do function. I've been there. Okay, I know they function. They're there.
That's fair.
Just don't do something wrong, because you'll find them.
Councilmember.
President Katina, we have a Government Reform Committee meeting scheduled for next Tuesday at 4:30, and I would like to suggest that we refer this back to committee for discussion.
Oh, God, are we not going to get anything done tonight?
No.
We are really reinforcing the adage that government cannot do things tonight.
What do you think, Alex?
We discussed this in committee. There was no objections in the committee at the time. It was understood I would introduce this. I would appreciate a vote, honestly. I mean, I don't know if going back to, if it goes back to committee, it goes back to committee, but we did discuss it, and no one had any concerns at the time.
Did someone call it? We've got a second. Yeah, I was the second. Okay. Then we're going for a vote.
On the motion to adopt Amendment Rose 1, Mr. Adams.
No.
Mr. Bott.
Abstain.
Ms. Filiaggi.
So abstain because I wasn't at that meeting, and I am so sorry that I didn't hear your presentation, and I just don't think I have enough to vote. I don't know if that's enough.
Mr. Fatoulis.
No.
Mr. Grisbeck.
Yes.
Ms. Allen.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Donna Emily.
Yes.
Ms. Nagarati Jeffrey.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Messina. Mr. Rose.
Yes.
Ms. Geiger-Schulman.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
No.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 9, noes 3, with 2 abstentions. Amendment Rose 1 is adopted.
Okay, so Ms. Nakaradi Chapkus, would you now like to make the motion to approve 13808-26 as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, let's go to a roll call.
On the motion to approve the bill, Mr. Adams.
Abstain, not as amended.
Mr. Bottom.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatoulis.
No.
Mr. Grisbeck.
Yes.
Ms. Allen.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Donna Emily.
Yes.
Ms. Nagarati Jeffrey.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Messina. Mr. Rose.
Yes.
Ms. Geiger-Schulman.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
No.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 11, noes 2, with 1 abstention, the bill passes.
Committee on Housing and Homelessness for the second reading, 13863-26.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the provide the type of residential tenant protections and retaliation in order to protect the right of residential tenants to engage in lawful activity in pursuit of healthy and safe housing conditions, sponsored by the Chief Executive and Councilmembers Rose and Plata.
Councilmember Hallam?
Thank you so much, Pat. The Committee on Housing and Homelessness met and affirmatively recommended this bill with a unanimous affirmatively recommendation on March 17th, and I would like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councilman Walton.
I got a phone call yesterday afternoon from Bob Damewood. Bob and I have known each other for probably close to 20 years. And Bob has always been an honorable guy. Always been straightforward, moving to empower folk. And as part of our conversation, he talked about some of the issues that he thought were really important as part of this legislation. And I agreed. We agreed on every point. And from listening to some of the folk that were part of the conversation's agenda items, I affirm there's a major housing problem, a major problem with facilities that are reimbursed by HUD across this county. And we have to build, and I agree, this ordinance just is the tip of the iceberg. We have to build a broader strategy on how we're going to ensure quality housing for all residents of Allegheny County, senior citizens, those that are disabled, those facilities, and the lady that spoke about Monview Heights. Hey, look, we have to do what we're obligated to do, is provide quality, decent, healthy, safe housing for folks to live a quality lifestyle. And as a result, I'm in full support of this ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Futulis?
Okay, let me make it clear. I'm very much in favor of this ordinance because of not just testimony, but I understand that the what it is to be a tenant and a landlord, for sure. I'm a landlord, and I've been advised as a landlord that I should not vote for this because it's a conflict of interest. So I will be abstaining because of it. Thank you.
Councilmember Abada?
Thank you, President Katina. So I just wanted to say that I have the unique identification of being one of the few people on the dais who is a tenant, and I have a landlord, and I have actually lucked out because I have a really good landlord. That was not the case in past situations. You know, I've lived in Pittsburgh my entire life. I stayed here. I went to the University of Pittsburgh. So I've been in a number of different places across the county in terms of being a tenant. And I had some bad experiences sometimes. I remember one place in Bloomfield, there was constantly a trash smell outside of my kitchen. When I first moved in, we had somebody coming to shampoo the rugs, and they said, yeah, this rug is at least 14 years old. So I don't know if you've ever seen a 14-year-old rug, but it's not something that's very great. But eventually, somebody bought this property that I had lived in, and the property manager switched over, and they decided that they were going to increase the rent by more than 32%, basically overnight. And I asked them, okay, so you're going to raise the rent by more than 30%. Are you going to make any improvements to the conditions around the apartment building? And they said, no, why would we? So I left, and luckily I found another place, and like I said, I'm very lucky to have a good landlord now, but that is not the case for thousands of people across Allegheny County. there are many people, and we've heard from many of them tonight, and we've heard from them both in the Committee on Housing and Homelessness, as well as I've gotten several emails to my county email regarding this bill. This is something that it has precedence right now. Is it a perfect bill? No. Bills are rarely perfect. We could pass a bill tonight that puppies are awesome, but cat people will be like, wait a second, what about the kitties? However, that being said, when the county executive eventually signs this bill, it will have more protections. You know, we will wake up with more protections for tenants across this county than we did before, and that is 100% worth supporting. And I applaud the county executive for proposing such a measure, and I will be voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else the same thing? Go ahead.
I have a background as a refugee and immigrant housing coordinator and advocate. And in that time, my eyes were truly opened to the effects of non-renewals for people. If you have an eviction filing against you, it's not easy, but it's not as hard to find help. There are places that will help represent you. The scourge of non-renewal of a lease is so pervasive, and shifting that responsibility to say this person did do something wrong, and most tenants probably have. There are many things that a tenant can do. The landlord just has to show one of them to say this is justifiable, that I don't need to renew this lease, or I can go forward with this eviction. It's not a particularly far-reaching or brave bill, but it is giving people some sort of recourse when they have just reported to the health department, asked for help. We all know the scourge of the portal. Just report it to the portal, and then they close that ticket, and you have never seen that person because they knocked at a time when they know you're at work. There are just so many ways that people are abused in this system in Allegheny County and beyond. And when people don't feel safe going and getting the help, there are dire consequences. When you don't have heat and you have extension cords and space heaters, there are fires. When you don't call because of chipped paint or unsafe living conditions outside, kids struggle with the effects of lead their entire lives. And that is a huge problem in Allegheny County. And I personally have had people I worked with who were put out of their apartment because their child was identified as having elevated lead levels in school. They didn't even call the health department. The health department comes from the school, and those people were not renewed because the person had to do so much work to mitigate the lead in their area. And the mold causes increased incidence of asthma. So these aren't small issues that people are living with, and in a time of housing scarcity, this is really increasing. And I'm so happy that we're able to give people recourse through this bill, and I hope we continue to grow the program.
Any Councilman Futolis?
Sure, I'd like to clarify something with Jordan. You mentioned that your rent had gone up without any improvements to the building. Well, as a landlord, you have to understand that your county taxes go up, your city tax goes up, and your school tax. When that happens, in my lease, it says catastrophic event or in the event of a tax increase. So if the rent goes up $100 a month, it's based on the fact that your taxes went up on $100 a month. That's the fairness of a bill like that. That's what a landlord deals with. It's not necessarily new carpet, new paint, new this, new that. It's the cost of owning the home itself based on people like us that raise their taxes. That's it, thanks.
President Katina.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So just a few things. I wanted to share, certainly the public comments that were made this evening really did hone in on a couple of key factors. And one is that healthy housing is something that has not been afforded to many residents of Allegheny County. And we know when a resident has healthy housing, we know that they have better academic achievement and outcomes in schools, less school days that are missed. And we also know that parents have less days worked, missed days of work, and so economic stability and in the workforce. And all of those things are very much correlated to a healthy housing condition. I will say that because we heard so many instances, time and time again, I heard about mold, and I have experienced this through my professional day job through work. There's an opportunity here that we have to take advantage of. And so as the chair of the Housing Advisory Committee at the Health Department, I will bring to that next meeting. Right now, mold is not an enforceable action in Article 6, and it needs to be. And so this is the time and place now to draft some new language to amend Article 6 to include mold to be an environmental toxicant, of which could be enforced by the Allegheny County Health Department when a call is made. And so I just wanted to share with the residents who came forth, were so courageous in their remarks and their experiences that they shared tonight, that I will take that next step and after this meeting, so that it's something that hopefully can be addressed in years to come.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Michelle, I run a workforce development program. And as part of my workforce development program, we teach a mold remediation course. I am willing to work with you, and so that where applicable or where possible, we will put together weekend trainings to do mold remediation. Because we understand both the implications of what mold actually does to folk, and so I'll work with you to try to deal with some of those challenges.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anyone else this evening? Roll call vote, please, Jared.
On the motion approved, Mr. Adams.
I abstain for the reasoning that I did not have a chance to speak with Frederick about executive session, and that is on me, and I do apologize to the voters and the speakers there. I genuinely am concerned about the retaliation that does happen, but because I do not have the background of the executive session information, and I will take responsibility for that, but I do abstain at this time.
Mr. Bada.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
No.
Mr. Fatoulis.
Abstain.
Mr. Grisbeck.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Madonna Emmerling.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmesina. Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
Ms. Geiger Schulman.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 11, no 1, with 2 abstentions, bill passed.
Committee on Parks for the second reading, 13880-26.
An ordinance, and I'm reading the wrong thing. An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to allow King Street Productions Incorporated to use certain county-owned real and personal property in connection with the filming of a television series sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilman Futoulis.
Sure. Last week, we had our committee meeting on the parks, and this King Street Productions will be in North Park, South Park, and I believe even the courthouse at times. And there were some questions during the committee. I assume you guys may have seen an email that answered the questions. Okay, for those of you who didn't, but from what I'm gathering here, that they will be getting $1,000 a day for the filming, plus other expenses for police officers and other that impact our budget. So they will be covering those costs as well. So I make a motion to approve
Second.
the production at Parks.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please, Jared.
On the motion approved, Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Bada.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatoulis.
Yes.
Mr. Grisbeck.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Madonna Emmerling.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmesina. Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
Ms. Geiger Schulman.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 14, no 0, bill passed.
Any liaison reports this evening?
Just as an aside, I vigorously opposed some legislation that was passed a couple weeks ago regarding ICE. Not because I'm not as appalled as anyone is by their actions, but my concerns were affirmed by the county executive when she signed the legislation. And if I remember correctly, her words are, "This ain't gonna change much." So I told you, hey, look, it's not, we have to continue to engage in public protest against ICE and what's going on. But we also have to engage in ensuring that a good, fair, honest, and open electoral process is available so that we can change the political dynamics in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. New business. Ordinances and resolutions, 13892-26.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the Administrative Code of Allegheny County, Article 210, entitled Assessment Standards and Practices, in order to provide for periodic countywide reassessments as required by Commonwealth law, sponsored by Councilmembers Grisbeck, Geiger-Schulman, and Allen.
That will go to assessment practices. 13893-26. I believe you're going to withdraw that, correct?
I will wait to withdraw that until we see what the outcome
Okay.
is of the other bill in committee.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
13894-26.
And whether it's 13893 being held or referred.
Being held.
Okay. 13894-26, an ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending and supplementing the Administrative Code of Allegheny County, Article 311, entitled Official Action of the County Council, through the creation of a new Section 5-311.10, entitled Appointments, to establish term limits for individuals whose nominations for appointment to county entities are approved by council, sponsored by Councilmembers Grisbeck, Filiaggi, and Hallam.
That will go to government reform. 13895-26.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending and supplementing the Allegheny County Code of Ordinances, Sections 215, entitled Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Article 5, entitled Human Relations Commission, in order to rename the commission to the Housing, Employment, and Human Rights Commission, in order to offer the public greater clarity in the commission's role in assuring that all persons enjoy the full benefit of citizenship and are afforded equal opportunities for employment, housing, and use of public accommodation, sponsored by the chief executive.
Wow, Bethany's going to be excited. She's actually getting 2 bills this year already in 3 months of the year. That's going to housing and homelessness. 13896-26.
A resolution of the County of Allegheny amending the grants and special accounts budget for 2026, submission 02-26, sponsored by the chief executive.
That will go to budget and finance. We'll now move on to public comment on general items.
First up is Martine Saul.
Not here.
Second is Micah Pratt.
Not here.
Jermaine Tucker.
Not here.
Lisa Grace Markich.
Not here.
Linda Ambrosa.
Not here.
Randall Houck.
Nope, not a winner yet.
Jan Froman.
Nope.
Chad Ringbush.
Joe Griffo's here. I know Joe Griffo's here. Joe?
He's next.
Good evening. Pastor Joe Griffo, Pleasant Hills, and it grieves me. It truly does. I take no pleasure in this, and I do truly respect each and every one of you. Nevertheless, the Bible does say, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. In other words, those who call wrong right and right wrong. The prophet Isaiah was speaking to the religious and political leaders who had inverted morality and justice and would have to answer to God. And you, as a council, have already declared this county a sanctuary for abortion, and now, for all practical purposes, a sanctuary or welcoming community for those who have entered unlawfully. Sanctuary is the thoroughly biblical concept, emanating from the holy nature of God. Sanctum means sacred, consecrated, a holy place, a refuge for righteousness, a safe haven for the truth. And if you think about it, you have made this county a sacred place, a holy refuge for nothing less than the murder of the truly innocent, the preborn child in her mother's womb. It's not only tolerated but celebrated. That's an inversion of morality and justice. and now a sanctuary for those who, in the eyes of the law, are in this country illegally, whether it's the hard worker looking for a better life or the violent gang member involved in trafficking. Neither are innocent in the eyes of the law, although some bear more guilt than others. Yet this council has seen fit to make this county a sanctuary, consecrated holy refuge for those who have no legal right, according to established and settled laws of this nation, to be here. You have, especially through constituents, stressed, highlighted, and bemoaned nearly every incident of real or perceived harassment of undocumented by ICE. Yet I've never heard even one word of sympathy, compassion, consolation, or promise of justice towards those victimized, brutalized, whose lives have been destroyed by those here unlawfully. I know that your worldview simply will not allow it, so that means the truth and reality must be rationalized, minimized, or simply ignored. And there's several examples here in our own county and countless examples across the nation, the latest being Sheridan Gordon, an all too familiar story. And those who speak of this or to this, oftentimes even within this room, have been ridiculed, have been mocked, have been treated with disrespect, not by the council, labeled as unloving, intolerant, racist, less than neighborly, anti-immigration. That's not true. For example, my parents, my entire extended family immigrated from Italy in the early 1960s. I'm first generation here. I'm not anti-immigration, but I do refuse to conflate legal and illegal. It's not the same thing, and you know it. Concerning these issues, there has been an inversion of both morality and justice, and that's on your watch.
Thank you. Jacob Poole?
Good evening. I'm Zoltan Zsolt-Jakab, or present name Jacob Poole. I have multiple names because of American child slave trading facilities in Eastern Europe, where I spent 7 years as a child before American organizations and paramilitary organizations and paramilitary groups brought us children to America in the thousands during the Soviet Union collapse, when people were leaving Ukraine and Yugoslavia, and American paramilitary organizations gathered us into camps, separated us from our families, and held us children in camps for years and years, altering our names and records and bringing us to America. So I'm in the Pittsburgh area now. And recently, I tried to do a citizen-led petition, and it failed incredibly. I was obstructed, withheld proper information I was supposed to be provided by county council law, and harassed in the process, and it failed. And that petition, I was trying to bring access to police to people like me in the Pittsburgh area. The national average for people from Europe and Eastern Europe in the Pittsburgh city metro can be up to 100,000 people. And a lot of us were brought here using paramilitary human trafficking, child slave trading operations from Eastern Europe near war zones, where American child slave trading and human slave trading organizations prey on people leaving Ukraine and Yugoslavia and bring them here. And the Pittsburgh area has 50 Eastern European churches. And their people have representatives for companies and organizations that send people, paramilitary, ex-military people, to Europe and Eastern Europe near war zones to gather people and children to bring us here in the thousands. So there's like 100,000 people in the Pittsburgh metro area living like me. So I want to give them a flyer and an ability to file a police report, because right now they can't go to a police station. I've been to Edgewood Police Station where I live. I've been to Zone 3, Zone 4, Zone 5 police stations where they kept falsifying documents and records for me. And I've been held captive in America for over 30 years with medical devices and false medical information and false police documents, practically isolated with no family, minimal human contact. And while I was exploited for slavery at University of Pittsburgh for 10 years, PNC Bank, Giant Eagle passed through almost every major corporation in the Pittsburgh area, you know, in slavery conditions. So it's kind of ridiculous. And I can't go to the police to file a police report because the police chief said, get out of my police station before I arrest you. So I want to have the Pittsburgh 311 expanded to be countywide, so people from their homes can start filing police reports, so that international law can be respected in Allegheny County, where child trafficking is number 9 from Eastern Europe.
Thank you. I believe that's it. Motion has been made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice night.